So hello again and welcome back. So we will be starting our second panel shortly. The second panel topic will be on community capital driving and fan-based NFTs, empowering super brands. Please welcome Ben Ratcliffe, Andy Leon, Dan Mitchell, and Tom Downing. Thank you.
Where's Andy?
Yeah, he's there.
Is he?
Yeah.
After you? Oh, thanks.
Bro, go. You see, I got my own water, I'm still holding on to it.
Yeah, there we go.
Good man.
Got our own soundtrack. Are we on? There you go.
Yes, we can hear you.
You can hear us. Hello, everybody. I can't quite make you out in the audience there, but I trust you are over there. Thanks for the kind introduction. We're here to talk to you today about NFTs and how they can be used by super brands, and I suppose non-super brands as well. We won't be too exclusive about it, but super brands and how they can use NFTs and the technology behind it to drive engagement of fans, build communities, and potentially even drive revenues of the companies that are using them and adopting them. We'll start off a little bit of background of all the panelists, how they are using inside their firms or how they're seeing across the industry NFTs being adopted by brands and firms. Touch a little bit on where they think those changes are going to go in the future, and perhaps take maybe some questions from the audience at the end, just if people are interested in how they can adopt the tech for their own firms. We've got some experts up here that can touch on it. So I might start with a few introductions. I'll let the panel introduce themselves. We'll start with Dan, maybe.
Sure. Hi, I'm Dan Mitchell. I'm the Web3 lead over at Oracle Red Bull Racing. And yeah, my kind of background, I guess, before Red Bull is within advertising. So I've worked with lots of global brands to sort of develop brand strategy and advertising campaigns. And then I kind of found myself getting into the world of sort of cryptocurrency and Web3 quite late on, actually, in about 2020, 21, and when COVID hit, got far too involved in NFTs and sort of saw the opportunity about how kind of communities are built and you can get a really kind of hyper-engaged pool of people all essentially shouting about your brand. So I kind of head up Web3 at Red Bull Racing, and we work a lot with Bybit, one of our principal partners, and it's all about kind of how do we engage racing fans using Web3 technology, but really kind of putting fans or consumers at the heart of sort of what we do, and thinking about how we use the tech to engage them, recruit new audiences. And we look at everything from kind of NFTs to tokens to ticketing. So there's lots going on, but yeah, that's me.
Excellent. Just you're probably not alone there. Quick show of hands from the audience. Anyone buy an NFT during COVID? Yeah, about 30% of people. Trailblazing that. Excellent. Thanks, Dan. Tom.
Hi everybody, I'm Tom Downing. Today I am representing Beamer. So I play a role on the Web3 Council for Beamer. So for those who are not sure what Beamer is, it's the bit of a mouthful. It's the British Interactive Media Association. So Beamer exists to be the face of digital across all industries in the UK, and its primary objective is trying to encourage younger people to get into more wider-ranging careers within digital. I head up the Web3 side of that, and it's based around education. So education with brands, businesses, and then I teach as well at higher education. My second role as well is I co-found a Web3 education business called Roster. So Roster is launching soon, and it's going to be the world's first accredited by an awarding organisation mini MBA in Web3. There to try to not target developers, but to target marketeers in understanding the principles behind this technology and the outcomes that it can deliver.
Brilliant, thank you. And Andy.
Hey, hi, I'm Andy Leon. I'm a book author. My latest book is about NFT, From Zero to Hero. and thank some of you who bought my book. It's still doing fairly well. Other than that, I'm a licensed fund manager in Singapore. I do a lot of early stage investment by myself or with my team. I'm also an advisor to Bybit, so I look after government relations and of course my very dear friend Red Bull. So he's one of our closest partner. One of the closest partner. We do a lot of NFTs together, and we try to bring the Web3 journey a lot more fun to Oracle Red Bull Racing. So happy to be here. And again, I just want to take this really quick opportunity to thank all of you who have made it for the event. Because I think none of us thank the organizers and the media partners, and also Seed, who is trying to gather all of us at this event. So that's who I am. Love to talk more with everybody.
Thanks, team. And finally, me, Ben Radcliffe. I work for Amber Group. They're a crypto-native financial services firm that do a little bit of everything, actually. Some OTC trading for institutions. We've got a private wealth management business. We run some of the industry's biggest crypto-native funds. And they're a huge market maker and liquidity provider on exchanges and across DeFi platforms. So I'm from a trading background, run a high-frequency trading firm, a crypto exchange, and also from sort of TradFi world, I run some electronic trading desks across Asia and Europe as well. So it's been a varied career, but luckily found myself in crypto for the last 4 or 5 of them. So I might just start off with a very basic question and let Andy give us a bit of a background on the history of NFTs and how they've sort of progressed over the last 3 or 4 years. I think if you wound the clock back, maybe even 4 or 5 years, and asked people what an NFT was, they'd look at you with a bit of a puzzled look on their face. It wasn't a word that was in sort of general daily nomenclature. And now suddenly we're all sitting here with a couple hundred people sitting in a room learning about it. So it's been a very rapid transformation. So can I just ask you to just touch on what is it?
Sure, no problem.
How have they evolved, and we can move on to some use cases.
Sure. I think NFT is non-fungible token. When I first wrote my book in 2018, it's called Blockchain Revolution 2030. When I gave a speech online and I gave a speech in South Korea, everyone gave me a really like dirty look. I mean, what's this guy talking about? But back then, that is in 2018. But in the really good old days, if you remember, there are things like crypto kitties. These are like one of the first few NFTs that are more popular. And then you fast moving forward, you look at BAYC, aka you can see all those apes. You can see all those. Memes and so forth. All this actually came out in the last 2 years, And again, to be very honest, many of our friends are looking at this from a more speculation standpoint, for NFT, But to many of the crypto native, including myself, NFT is actually the gateway to a larger community, And you fast moving forward to current context, it is actually the gateway for big brands to connect their users with new technology, and using NFT as a really good sticky tool. You could talk about the next level fan engagement. So NFT itself, the technology is beautiful. And that's my summary.
Cool, thank you. So a technology platform that started off being driven by, I suppose, artists that wanted to create digital art and distribute it to people without being able to have them copied, right?
Yeah.
And then very quickly afterwards, because it's a digital contract effectively, you can start programming these things to do stuff. And then we kind of move on to memberships or utility tokens and the like. We've got people buying property with these things. So it might be useful to do a kind of real world example. Hand over to Dan, and just, as Red Bull Racing is one of the world's most certainly recognizable brands, I would say. If I asked everyone in this room to put their hand up if they had heard of Red Bull, I think I suspect it might be 100% hit rate. But you guys have just launched your Velocity series, kind of capturing or trying to put in NFT technology to engage your fans better. Can you just kind of talk us through, like, where did that start? Where did the idea come from? And what's the journey been like along the way?
Yeah, sure. So I think the reason exist as a Web3 team within Red Bull Racing is fundamentally how do we sort of harness new technology and innovation as a way to either engage existing fans within our fan base or recruit new audiences and bring them into F1, because that enables us to sort of grow our team. It gives us commercial opportunities, and ultimately it helps us fund the car, makes us go faster and win races, which is what we're sort of there to do. But NFTs, and the Velocity series is a project we've launched. Again, we're testing and learning with a lot of this stuff as a business. We're sort of dipping our toe into various areas, but the Velocity series was a thing we worked on with Bybit. It's a program we worked with Bybit on. And it's essentially an art-based project that taps into sort of generative art and the kind of that niche within Web3, and it's definitely kind of catered towards more of a Web3 audience who are collectors of this really high-value kind of digital art. So we're working with 4 kind of world-class artists. The reason we chose art as a proposition was because it's one of the things within the kind of NFT space that has managed to sort of hold its value, and there are lots of people still engaging with it as an asset. So and it's something that actually is quite relatable to fans as well. I mean, racing fans, we tested lots of different kind of art projects out with them previously, and it's something that seems to resonate with them. So we've launched the project this year. The objective is we can recruit a whole new audience, and ultimately we're trying to support our partner Bybit by driving them to the Bybit marketplace, which is where these NFTs are sold. So it's all about pushing people to Bybit's marketplace, getting them to sign up for a crypto wallet, and ultimately, hopefully, for Bybit become traders or trade on their platform. So a lot of what we do is about kind of supporting partners. And we're starting with we've got zero kind of, our crypto community is a base level of pretty much zero at the minute. We're still trying to work out the best way to sort of get our fans engaged with this technology. But one of the hopes is that we can create a really hyper-engaged audience that are not necessarily Formula One fans now, but they've got the potential to be. And kind of, I suppose the third thing is there is potential to act as a revenue stream for this project. It's the NFTs we're launching are high value, so commercially it's quite appealing because it has the potential to bring some revenue in for the team and for our partner Bybit. I suppose the biggest challenge the biggest challenge we face as a Web2 business is always around compliance, we've spent kind of 18 months trying to work out legally how we can deliver kind of crypto-based assets that transcend kind of countries, and they're global, and every country's obviously got different regulations in terms of advertising and compliance around kind of crypto and NFT. So our legal team have had to sort of learn on the job and pull in expertise, but I suppose that's been the biggest challenge with this. It's a Web2 business that is very much centralised, and we have very strict rules around how our IP is used, because our partners essentially pay for the use of our IP, and they pay us lots of money to sponsor the team to use our IP. But that's not how kind of NFTs and the decentralised world work. It's all about kind of IP sharing and kind of giving ownership back to the people who are buying these crypto assets. So those two things clash quite hard, and we're trying to sort of navigate that as we go.
It's interesting. Like Formula One's kind of ended up in this situation a few times before. So kind of anecdotally, if you think back to just the advertising on the cars, even a few years ago, it was cigarette brands, right? And as you move around the world, the rules around advertising, on TV for that kind of product change. And then since then, like maybe more recently, the crypto advertising has done the same thing. So if you have a look at like the Singapore Grand Prix last year, for example, a lot of advertising for crypto around the world. When it went to Singapore, many of the banners were sort of blacked out on the cars or replaced with something else. And now as a business, you're having to step even a bit even further, where there's not a physical location where you have to worry about controlling. It's actually part of your kind of core business. So good luck to the compliance and legal teams on that one. I think we've all been in businesses that have to be quite careful about it. All right, brilliant. So that's a bit about the Red Bull and Bybit approach. Tom, do you see that sort of growth occurring across the industry as a sort of consultancy business? You must see cross brands more broadly. Are you seeing the same sort of story? I know you've done a recent survey for kind of 50 of the world's biggest brands. You might have some feedback from that.
Yeah, I mean, the topic on here is around super brands, right? And it's a perfect example that Dan just took us through there of a business that has a lot of brand reputation that's to deal with, yet is interesting enough to be able to go into this space. So that shows you there's a level of demand, and there's lots of other examples of that. I think from my view, I'm always the annoying one that always says why, right, to people. So brands and other people want to do all this cool stuff, but I'm like, why do you want to do it? Why do you want to do it? There's got to be a legitimate reason, and it's not to do with the technology of why you want to get into this. And if we just take a step back, a long way back, and look at advertising, where it's come from in terms of the relationship between the consumer and the brand. Okay, so if you think pre-smartphone, pre-social media, if we can even remember what that was like, it was very traditional. It was quite simple, arguably, for a brand to be able to convey a message and build that relationship to that consumer, because there was only like 2 or 3 channels, and it was a one-way relationship there. As soon as then we entered into a space with the smartphone and social media, suddenly then brands were like, oh, okay, hang on a minute, you're now just on, I can't just talk to you on TV and in a magazine, you're now on phones, you're on different channels, but we can still track you. So cookies came around, we can now track your behavior, we can then still target you. Then obviously there's the sort of rise then of the consumer and data protection side in terms of people cottoning onto that, and then they're wanting to say, actually, no, that's not right. The fact that we get all these social channels for free, which the majority of people don't actually question, they don't realise that they're the product, they're the currency for these brands and that business model. So then comes the likes of what's known as dark social. So like dark social is a way of where consumers then are talking about the brands off channels that can be tracked. So you're talking of like people having conversations with a brand about on Discord, on WhatsApp and so on. And brands are not happy about that. They can't track it, they can't advertise to you, yet they had to try to find a way to still be able to talk to you. So brands, I think the relationship between brands and consumers in a really interesting space right now between when it comes into Web3 and NFT specifically, of finally now we have the technology to be able to offer the consumer the ownership of their identity. And we're talking about NFTs, so putting a brand, having an experience, and then me being able to legitimately actually access that. The technology's there now, but from a brand's perspective, they're still questioning around, well, how do I advertise to you? How do I know who you are? And Dan, what you just talked on there is interesting in terms of then Web 2 brands want a bit of the Web 3 side, but they also still want the Web 2 side. They still want to know who you are. They still want to track you. They still want to sell to you. So I think where super brands are right now, we did a research piece with 50 of the top brands around the world, and we're trying to understand about how are they going about entering Web 3, what's their strategies, and one of the key ones is test and learn. And that's the key thing, that businesses that are being successful, the big brands, are accepting that failure is a good thing, and they are going out there very much with the eye that we're going to learn with this, we're going to put something out and see, does it work in terms of our business, and also do our consumers actually want it, and be willing to be able to accept that. My final point on this is one of my favourite quotes on this topic, talking around technology and consumers and brands, is the future isn't robots, holograms and lasers. It's experiences and services powered by tech that no one sees. Like, consumers don't care about tech. They don't care about what blockchain it's running on, what wallet I need to download. They care about the experience. And I think if brands can enter this space in that way, in that mindset, and thinking about what's the value first that I can put on, and then look in their toolkit, and in this instance in NFTs, there's a huge, huge opportunity there.
Awesome, thank you. Andy, I might open the question up to you. Like, we've heard a little bit about how Red Bull are starting to use NFTs, and they've picked art as the initial use case. Simple for everybody to sort of understand. The technology lift might be a little bit lower than everything else. What do you think's next? Is it ticket sales? Is it like memberships for things? Is it provenance of physical items? Where do you see the industry going?
I think there is a very proper journey to all this Web3 experience, you know. So if you look at it from a big brand perspective, you know, example for Red Bull itself, you know, they are looking at, last year they were looking at PFP, right? Very simple profile picture. It gained traction really fast, you know, last year. So out of the 10,000, I think it's all being grabbed within seconds, right? Then this year, they look at artists, you know, things that are of a higher value, of a higher retained value. I think that's the right thing to do in the current times, because only artwork right now has a certain value and has a certain retention value, and people are very open to that, right? As this progress, you know, for a brand, again, like Red Bull, you know, the natural progression would be a few things. Number one would be ticketing. So NFT ticketing, I think, is a very straight, low-lift kind of adoption. People can relate it very well because everything is already on the phone. You know, like what Tom has mentioned, nobody is going to care whether this is an NFT or whichever, right? But it is all digitized, right? You can just claim it, no problem at all. And if a brand, maybe not Red Bull, you know, maybe another brand, you know, they might be thinking about creating some fan base token, right? Fan base token has a longer history. You know, there were other brands or even other motorsports team who didn't do well in the past. You know, but there's a reason why they didn't do well, you know, because they launch it from a more money perspective, right? If you launch it with the members in mind, with the community in mind, the outcome will be different, you know. Instead of them speculating how much a token is going to cost or what is the value of the token, they would be looking at things like, okay, what kind of experience I'm going to get, you know. Can I meet the team principal, maybe Christian, you know, can I meet face-to-face with him, ask him some good tips on how he manages the team? Can he meet up with Max, for example? You know, how do you manage to drive that fast, you know? So all that kind of, you know, money can't buy experiences can be part of a utility. And that is part of the whole NFT journey. Then you think a little bit further, right? When you have that fan-based token, what else can you do, right? You could then adopt that token into a game. Users can play in the game can reside in the metaverse, and then that creates another ecosystem for the big brands. You know, I see my friend is nodding his head. You know, we hope to see that kind of journey. You know, same for Bybit. You know, when we choose Red Bull as a partner, what we really want is not just about sign-ups. You know, it's not just about numbers. You know, we want to have a vision that we can reach out to more crypto users. You know, we want more people to understand what crypto is all about. You know, we want people to know that our brand exists and we are here to service you. You know, and all these fans are all the same. You know, they are all likely customer of ours, customer of yours, and I think that is the kind of journey that some of these big brands should really look at. You know, ultimately, you know, you can even look at sales, e-commerce on the metaverse. in the form of NFTs. So that journey, that ecosystem can just go all the way from metaverse back to merchandise again. So that whole ecosystem is just really too interesting. To me, from a more commercial standpoint, well, I see a lot of money. So it's a
in
good
summary,
money.
it's everything.
Yes. If you do it in a good manner, good money comes back. You could then keep the whole ecosystem alive and keep it going.
Cool. Just to build on that, I think both Tom and Andy really interesting points there. But I think ultimately for us, we've launched this project now that's quite Web3 focused. But ultimately, we want to engage as many fans as physically possible, and using Web3 technology as the tool to do it, because it gives fans ownership. It's a better frictionless experience, or it ultimately can be. So I think the point around we're like, no fan is crying out going, "Where's your next Web3 product? We're desperate for a Web3 product." They're not doing that. They're going, "I never get to go to a race," because most people will never get to go to an F1 race, and most of our fans never get to go to one. But they want to feel close to the team. They want to feel emotionally connected to the team. How do we best use Web3 technology to give them that kind of emotionally engaging experience, whether it's getting closer to drivers, whether it's being able to access Christian Horner, whether it's some kind of exclusive thing that no one else is getting, but using a kind of loyalty and reward program or whatever that might be. Because Web3, to Andy's point, it can be used across. We can use Web3 for everything. I mean, we've got an incredibly successful Web2 based loyalty scheme called the Paddock, which is an email address and password. You collect your Paddock points, and then you swap those points for experiences with the drivers, or for merchandise, or for exclusive content. I mean, ultimately, that'd be great to be built on a Web3 platform where you're giving the fan much more ownership over those assets, or those tokens, or those points, but without them ever even realising they're kind of interacting with the technology. I think that's the ultimate goal, really. It's like, how do we give them a really frictionless experience, so they because there's lots of negative sentiment around the tech, but really they shouldn't be worried about the technology. It's more about what they're getting from kind of using it, or the experience we give them.
Awesome. I've been frantically writing down notes and follow-up questions here. A couple of things that you all mentioned there, which I'll touch on in a sec. One is the tech should be invisible. Like, we're at an NFT conference, so we're obviously going to be talking about NFTs and the tech that drives them, but actually it's about the experience to the end user. And so very closely linked to that is, just because you've got this newfangled widget thing that's the word of the day, like, you can't just roll out an NFT strategy and expect it to work well because it's got NFT written on it. It's all about the underlying experience and what happens with the customers. Good examples being, NFT gaming industry. Writing games is really hard, it turns out. Right? Whether you can buy a sword and swap it with somebody else or not, right? Actually, the underlying product itself is really, really important to get right. So I've opened up to the panel there. Have you got some sort of cautionary tales or examples about how not to get that part wrong? Like, how do you have a full NFT strategy rather than just a sort of, I suppose, a gimmick almost?
Yeah, so I think we were in the kind of, probably about 2 years ago when we first started dipping our toe into the NFT world. It was quite gimmicky. It was, let's launch an NFT. There was no real utility behind it. It was a kind of helmet or a race suit or whatever that might be, kind of almost expecting fans just to buy it. Like,
is that, sorry to jump in on you, that sounds very similar to like the merchant or the memorabilia sort of world. Like, I've got things hanging on my walls at home. It's just is that just the digital version?
Exactly
of
that. And I think we thought that just by creating a digital version of a race suit or a signed shirt or whatever that might be, fans would instantly jump at it. They'd want to buy it, and they kind of want to get involved. But I think we found that just wasn't the case. I mean, it wasn't a huge success, because I think they were going, okay, well, I've got this digital asset. What next? What does it do? How can I use it? What's the utility that sits behind it? So I think we've become a lot smarter now, and the Velocity series that we're launching, and then collectibles that we're looking to launch in the future, it's thinking much more long term. So the art project we're running with these 4 kind of top tier artists, that runs throughout the season. That gets activated around races, and at those races, your NFT gets you special access to certain locations or events around the race. It could get you into a Discord channel to talk to Christian Horner or Checo. So we're thinking much more about kind of what is the sort of you buy your NFT or you buy your product, your Web3 product. What is the utility that it gives back to that is kind of relevant for a consumer or for a fan?
Cool. And Tom, just from your perspective, like the education side of things across the industry, like how are you advising people to adopt the new tech and fit it into their strategies?
I think another good example, carrying on from that same theme of how not to do it, I think the sports space is really interesting, and football clubs generally. So Liverpool Football Club launched their first NFT 18 months ago, I think, maybe a bit longer, and it didn't do very well. And when you look at the reasons why and you dig into it, I don't know how well your first Red Bull NFT side was with the helmets.
Very well.
Did very well. So Liverpool's didn't do very well at all, right? And I think the reasons why, and Porsche the same, these big brands, super brands, think that because they are the largest in the market, they have the permission to be able just to do and launch anything and their fans will buy it. And in this space, compared to Web2 marketing, it's completely different. Rather than that one-way relationship of, yeah, I will target you, I will sell to you, it's more, there's an expectation on the consumer where I, as a consumer, want to shape the products that you're actually making and influence your marketing rather than just being a byproduct of your company. So Liverpool Football Club, in that example, learned from that, and they partnered with Meta, launched a NFT-based clothing, and where you could then use it, and it was a massively successful project. And the reason is that they learned, they go into that test and learn strategy, learn from their mistakes, and have carried on from it. My favourite example, I think, of a super brand would be Reddit. So you all know Reddit, the brand, right? So one of the largest social channels. I think they have over 50 million daily visitors, which is insane. But it's a traditional, very large Web2 audience that care very deeply about their opinion. And so they wanted to get into Web3, and they recently launched through NFTs, a digital collectible avatar. So you could go and customize and create your avatar and buy it. But going back to my previous point, the way that they went about that to the outside world and communicated it was nothing to do with any of the terminology at all. They dug deeply into thinking, okay, what terms do our audience understand? What would they actually appeal to them if we were to put this utility out there where you can create your own avatar? And the avatar, from a strategy, made sense to that platform because, again, people like their identity, they want to stand out, and they also care about their opinion. So when they launched it, they didn't use NFT, they used collectible avatars. They didn't use wallet, they used, what was it now? I can't remember this term that basically the audience understood, and they didn't use tokens, they used coins. Vault, that was it, they used Vault. And it was hugely successful. I think it sold 3 million on first launch. They opened 3 million wallets as a result of it. So that's a great example of, like, before running into this, first of all, understand the brand values, what our customers want from it, then find the opportunity before the tech, and then look into the technology and say, what's available to power this?
Maybe I just some of my own thoughts, throw away my head as whatever title that I have, but I just want to say that, you know, a lot of these things are still gimmick, you know, very honestly. If you hear very carefully on what we are trying to say, it's all gimmick. You know why? Because if you are a football club, for example, sorry, anyone else, yeah? Football club, for example, you create merchandise, right? You could do it in the Web 2 space, you can do it in the Web 3 space, right? If you are going to create some pictures and profile picture, you could do it in the Web 2 space, you can do it in the Web 3 space, right? If you do not emphasize on the technology itself, which make it unique, you know, which makes it transparent, you know, then what's the difference between the two sets of picture? You know, does it mean that you know, one of my friend, I think he's still around. He bought a PFP this NFT. You know, he told me that the utility is that he could be able to go to a US conference and attend the conference, right? Right? But the devil is in detail, right? Most people will not ask him things like me. I asked him, do you need to pay for the tickets? Yes. Come on, man. Then I could then walk to the website and pay for it. You know, why do you need an NFT? You know, and then maybe another friend would say, oh, because I have an NFT, I get another T-shirt. You know, but the thing is, if you are in the Web2 world, you could also do the same, right? You buy the ticket, and when you collect the ticket, they give you a T-shirt. It's the same. We have to look at the technology in a more commercial manner, right? Today, Twitter or X, they are able to share the revenue, right? They are a Web2 company effectively, but if you are doing it in a Web3 manner, you are able to track it, find it on chain, you know, and be accountable for it, right? Right now, who is going to ask Elon Musk, why am I only getting $1,000 and the other chap with lesser followers are getting more, right? So we have to be very practical on what we are trying to do and what we are trying to address right now, right? That's the first point. The second point that I would love to say is that, you know, Tom mentioned about Porsche and so forth. You know, many of these big brands do not really understand what their community really want, right? And then how does it work, right? If today, example, with Red Bull, they partner with leading artists, right? Then, to be honest, you know, the heavy lifting goes back to the artist plus Red Bull plus ourselves, right? Then if the artist is still, you know, still a rising star or somebody, there's definitely people buying their artwork. Maybe it's at this price or maybe at that price, right? Then it become a process, you know, instead of just trying to earn some money out from this. Because a lot of big brands, for example, Starbucks, you know, they are here not to sell the NFT, you know. They just created some NFTs just to gain traction, you know. They will not gain immediately from the sale of the NFT because it's free, but maybe their stock is going up, right? Maybe there's a certain things that they are trying to do, right?
Plenty of examples of companies writing words that are, you know, digital
Precisely,
after their names. You write AI after your company name.
True.
At the moment, you double your
True.
stock price. So we've got about 6-7 minutes left. A couple of kind of follow-up questions to those as well. You mentioned very briefly there, like ticketing. It seems like a very obvious place to start. And you know, NFTs at their heart are it's a digital way to prove that something is unique and that you've got it and no one else has copied it. Right, it's around sports. There's a big adoption in Formula One and football and so on. Tickets seem like a pretty obvious use case for both utility and fan engagement. Why have we not seen a sort of bigger growth in ticket sales being moved on to blockchain technology? Anyone fancies taking that curve?
I'll start the debate. I think it's political rather than the tech. So if you think of the electric car industry, everybody, even if you don't own an electric car, you will all see at the service stations the queues of people trying to wait to try to charge their car, and then when they charge their car, all of the competitors, all of the suppliers of electric are competing against each other, so they're all different apps. So the UX of that experience is awful. And then you ask yourself why. Well, as in the simple solution would be a government to come in and say, right, now you're all going to operate on exactly the same protocol, the same standards, same application, same physical connectivity, and same tariffs, as an example. Without them doing that, there's no incentive for each one of those to do so. And I think it kind of goes in the same thing with ticketing as well. You've got the likes of SeatLab, right? So SeatLab, incredible Web3 ticketing business. And they are solving a lot of the things that we're talking about here, that ticketing is a great example around Ford and resells that they are doing really well from. Ticketmaster themselves, very large ticketing, one of the largest ticketing companies, are experimenting and do have a lot of play in blockchain, but I think the reasons why it's not coming up to the forefront is there's a lot of people behind the scenes profiting from the way that it's set up at the minute, being honest with you, and the way that it's commercialized and the way that it's ran, going down to a decentralized way where the individual owns that ticket and then can resell it and profit from it, they don't like. I think it will go that way because consumers will make it go that way eventually, but I think that's why it's not going as quick as it should do.
So the same pushback and barriers to entry as every other industry that you can think of. Excellent. So we've got a few more minutes left. A quick open up to the audience, maybe one or two questions if there are any. Otherwise, I've got a list of questions written down here. Any takers? Can't see it. Oh, we've got one at the back very quickly. We've got a microphone. I can hear you.
I'll save myself shouting. Do you think, you talk about brands, do you think with the NFTs have had a bad rep over the past year or so because of bad actors? So do you think enterprises can actually utilize NFTs to power their brands forward, or do you think that the negative connotation is actually going to hamper the business strategy in the long term?
Anyone want to take that? I'll do a 10-second one. I mean, definitely it will. This will be the way that a lot of stuff works in the future, certainly. Like most previous nascent technologies have had exactly the same bad rap, whether it's because, the dot-com bubble, everybody ran out of money, or as we've seen with crypto, it's kind of an up and down cyclical market with some issues. But most new technologies go through exactly the same cycle, and it's about trying to apply a technology to solve a particular problem that you have, rather than just using the tech just for any particular reason and hope it monetizes.
Yeah, I just kind of add to that. I think the sentiment around NFTs is massively negative. If you were to ask a racing fan, and we see it when we kind of post stuff on our social media channels or we start to talk about NFTs, it doesn't get a lot of love from the consumer currently. So I think what we're trying to do to combat that is we don't talk about NFTs, we talk about collectibles. We're trying to go out to our fan or consumer and get them. Yeah, they are interacting with an NFT, but they'll never know they're actually interacting with an NFT. They're just getting a collectible from us. So I think we're trying to move away from that almost at Red Bull Racing. We're trying to move away from that terminology completely. It's just about giving the fans another experience, whether that's a token or an NFT or whatever that asset is. But sort of trying to distance ourselves slightly from all the tech and the terminology.
It's a reputational risk, right?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So I've got a flashing clock in front of me there, so we might have to cut that off for the last one. Quick closing statements from the panels. Maybe just touch either on what does the industry need to do more broadly, maybe even around the tech for the NFT industry to explode into brand management. Like how do you display your NFTs once you've bought them or something along those lines? Or what do you think on the commercialization of the future?
Yeah, I could talk about the fan very quickly. I mean, I think it's just about making it much more frictionless for the average punter or consumer, removing all the sort of jargon and the complexities around kind of dealing with wallets or having to buy assets in crypto. It's about how do we make the most frictionless journey possible for that consumer, so that they don't even realise they are engaging with the technology. And I think that's how we start to reach the sort of masses on it.
Move away from NFTs constantly just being monetary value. On Andy's point earlier, I think that's a big problem at the minute. Consumers expect that the NFT will have a monetary value to it, so their intention is that first over the experience. I think as that's moved away with the likes in terms of NFT innovation around dynamic NFTs, where potentially NFTs are no longer static, they're dynamic, and which means that they can actually react to external signals that are going on the internet, is fascinating. And I think the intention why a consumer would buy that and get into that is not around scarcity, therefore increase of value. It's to do with long-term engagement and commitment to that brand.
Yeah, utility.
My last quick words is, try to embrace the technology. Let's not just be stopped because someone told you that NFT is not good. Try it. When you try it, you understand the true value behind this NFT and its underlying technology. I think that's the best. Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, we're well and truly out of time. Thanks very much, panel. Thanks, audience, for listening, for the questions.
Thank you.
Can we take a group? Shall we do a group shot?